Are you an overwhelmed SaaS founder ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those you don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where tech transformation is part innovation, part chaos, and mostly figuring out how to modernize without breaking the one system nobody fully understands. You relate to that? I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. Why does revenue get so complicated the moment it starts working? You'd think it'd get easier. But quotes live in one system, billing lives in another, finance cleans up the mess later, and somehow this is considered normal in SaaSlandia. But what if the real bottleneck in growth isn't sales execution? It's the way revenue is stitched together behind the scenes. Today, we're going to unpack a smarter way to think about revenue operations, RevOps, one where quoting, billing, and invoicing aren't fragmented steps, but part of a single intentional flow. You'll hear why treating billing as an afterthought slows teams down, creates friction for customers, and quietly caps scale. The conversation challenges the idea that RevOps has to be rigid, showing how speed, flexibility, and fast time to value can become a serious competitive advantage. We'll also dive into what it takes to build systems and teams that can actually keep up with change. From creating a culture where values show up in daily decisions to designing technology that evolves with customer needs instead of fighting them. This episode will reframe revenue as a lifecycle, not as a transaction. But if your growth is outpacing your infrastructure or your systems feel heavier the bigger you get, this conversation offers a fresh perspective on how modern revenue operations can unlock momentum instead of slowing it down. Let's do this. Our expert guest last Thursday was Daniel Nikic. He joined us with a timely reminder that in an AI-driven world, human judgment still matters, and it matters a lot. Drawing from decades of global experience, Daniel reframed AI as a powerful assistant, not a decision maker. He shared where AI creates huge leverage, where blind trust becomes extremely dangerous, and how leaders can combine speed with wisdom when making those high-stakes decisions. And our founder last week was Alex Sanfilippo, founder of Podmatch. He gave us a behind-the-scenes look at building a creator-first platform in a metrics-obsessed industry. It's pretty cool stuff. He shared why serving independent podcasters, not chasing clout, became Podmatch's unfair advantage, how education builds confidence, and why tracking one meaningful metric beats dashboard overload. Definitely a grounded lesson in sustainable platform growth, and he might even convince you that you need a podcast for your SaaS. Who knows? But if you missed either of those episodes, go back and check them out. It's a lot of gold to be mined from both of them. My guest today is Mark Walker, CEO of New, and one of the leaders quietly redefining how modern SaaS companies think about revenue. They're backed by $30 million in funding, and New has emerged as the leading quote-to-cash platform, purpose-built to help SaaS and AI companies move faster than legacy CPQ and billing systems ever did. Mark's vision goes way beyond process automation, though. In fact, he says revenue should be treated as a life cycle, not a handoff. We'll explore that. Well, New is leveraging agentic AI to prepare revenue teams for what's coming next, not just what's broken today. Welcome someone who's helping SaaS leaders modernize revenue without slowing growth. Mark Walker. Hey, Mark, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Hey, Jeff, thank you so much for having me.
You have a very non-linear career path, which I always think is fascinating. From pharmacology to law to the music industry, and now leading one of the most innovative revenue platforms in SaaS. What ties all of this together? And what drew you into fixing revenue operations?
I think what ties them together is curiosity.
Love it.
I just I love to go down rabbit holes. I love hard things. I love, I started doing one degree and decided, well, since I'm doing this degree, I should probably do another degree at the same time, and then um, I somehow ended up in law school, which was amazing. And then found out that there was this thing about to be litigation about the copyright rights on the internet. And as a lawyer, I was like, well, that seems like the most interesting thing I could possibly do. No, maybe not the
Sure.
most lucrative thing I could do, but the most interesting. And then I ended up being from that, just deciding, hey, I want to be part of this. I don't want to watch it. I don't want to talk about it. I sure don't want to regulate it. I want to build it. And so then, once you switched over to being to doing what we do in building companies, it doesn't always go right. It's never goes the way you think it's going to go. And you
Sure.
always learn an incredible amount of stuff. So, for me, what makes this fun and why I, really can't stand not to do it is just this insatiable curiosity about new ways of doing things and also about the incredible array of businesses that are out there. Like, of course there's someone who does that, like whatever that is, there's someone who does that
Sure.
and they're world-class experts in that. And I think that's what's also super fun.
So what was it about RevOps that drew you in?
Actually, it was Tina Kung who was the founder of New. um, so initially when I was approached by Robin Toniades at Information Venture Partners in Toronto, and he'd been asking around, I need a CEO for this seed stage company, which is a really weird thing to be saying, but anyway. And and um, and he tried to convince me to become the CEO. And I said, look, I just sold a company to TA. We owned the whole company. That works out really well. And and um and I just want to go kiteboarding for a long time. And then he said, well, would you mind meeting the founder and hearing from her? And she is a unique generational talent, like not a CTO. If we weren't building such a great product, she would make an amazing CEO in many, many ways. In fact, that was my first question to her after meeting her and hearing from her. I said, "Why aren't you the CEO?" And then, but partly what she had was this incredibly clear vision about what the problem is in RevOps and in billing, and how these were not two different problems; they were the same problem. And she had this clear way of describing it, this crazy clear way of understanding what the solution was, a really steely eyed view of how hard it was going to be to take that market. And I already said I like to do hard things. And then this most absolutely crazy go to market that just seemed like, you want to take that fight on? I'm down with that. And she basically, because the go to market is, let's sell systems that people already have. it's like and the reason we're going to be able to sell them is they hate them, and it was super fun, right? So
That's really cool. So you see it, you meet Tina and say, hey, this is the one I want to build. And you're right, it is a very entrenched space. So how did you know that you could disrupt it? I mean, they hate it, but people hate lots of things and don't switch. How did you know that you could disrupt it?
I think the vision that Tina had, and as they say in comedy, timing is everything, right? But Tina had this sort of sense, this sort of gut sense that all great entrepreneurs have, that the world was about to change and that she understood what the change was going to be, right? And what we would now recognize, what that change that was about to happen was ChatGPT and Anthropic and all the things that have come out of that, right? But when she was building this, she was building in 2020, and she had this vision. People were talking about the problems they were having grouping these systems together, and she realized that if the pace of change changed at all, this was just going to break because people were like
Yeah.
stitching it together with baling wire and string and a piece of cans, and and they were making integrations that were incredibly brittle. Like, so they worked, but they couldn't change them. And and she came from Zora, and she came from Steelbrick from and Salesforce CPQ, and she knew that these were two products built by incredibly good engineering teams who built just different data models at different points in time. And so she had this vision. She was the right person at the right time in the right place with the right experience, and also the support of Cheng Zhu, who was the original CTO of Zora, who was a big proponent and supporter of her. And they just said, there's something about to happen, and when it happens, all the existing systems will be obsolete, all of them, right? And that's what's happened. That's essentially what's happened. And so she was prepared to bet, like all good founders, a very lucrative, straightforward career on that the world was going to change and that she knew where it was. And she was like Gretzky skating to where the puck is going to be.
That's brilliant.
Yeah,
It's a
she
very,
is.
very good place to be.
She's amazing. So once you meet someone like that and you get the opportunity to work with them and then build a team around that person, like if you don't want to do that, you should not be in this
How do you
business.
say no?
Yeah, no, you can't. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, you're right. That is definitely an area that is so broken in most companies, and they're kind of held together, but it's a critical function. Why do you think that is, and what is it that most founders misunderstand about this part of the stack in RevOps?
Yeah, so basically people think of it like you have this quoting system, and the quoting system is objective is to produce quotes and agreements. And that is an objective. And then you have a self-service system, and that is meant to provide a self-service interface where people can do PLG activities, and that is an objective, but it's not the whole objective. And then you have a billing system, and the purpose of that thing is to produce invoices, right? But what they miss about it is if the purpose of producing quotes and the person interacting on the self-service is to produce bills, like in fact, bills are the only thing that matter because the contracts are just a step towards being able to invoice somebody and collect money from them, right? And so what Tina's vision was is that quoting is literally configuring billing. And if it's not literally like actually doing it automatically, if you have to keep changing or customizing or adapting your pricing or even your contracts, not just your general pricing, but individual contracts, and you need to build them properly, that has to be in the same system. But the other side of it is that doesn't mean they have to feel like the same system. So when people are using our Salesforce CPQ, they have no idea that they're configuring a billing system, nor do they care. Right?
Yeah, they just want the outcome.
That's the outcome. And the people using a self-service have no idea that the interface that they are interacting with was programmed by the CPQ. When the user comes in, they see the pricing, they think that's the pricing. No, that's the pricing for you because you're a German nonprofit with less than 500 people. All that complexity of pricing is not an engineering function. That is a CPQ. That is a RevOps function and a products
Mm.
function. And so when you design something super elegantly, all this complexity drops away, and people just get to do what they want to do without having to worry about how do I stitch this together. It just is stitched together.
This is really amazing. I know that's something that is a lot of sales reps complain about. And deals are held up, revenues held up. I mean, invoices are missed. So we've had that in our own organization, where a contract was done and somebody wasn't billed for 3 months or longer.
Yeah, we found
Crazy.
at one of the companies. Every time we implement a company, we run whether or not you buy our billing because we're a billing company. We have amazing CPQ, so a lot of people buy just the CPQ. And honestly, buying the CPQ can make your life a whole lot better, even if you don't get switching a billing system is hard, and it may be a step two, right? But every time we implement this, we run what's called a catch-up billing run, and the purpose is to find out if the subscription data is right. Because how would you know, right? And one thing you can test it against is last quarter's or last month's billing, right? So we run a
Hmm.
test, and we always find revenue leakage. We always find something that either isn't billed, wasn't being completely billed, or there's some usage that wasn't being billed that our system would go, hey, hang on a second, why do we have no usage here? And that sort of stuff. In one case, for one customer, we found $2 million of ARR, right? So just think
Wow.
how much value that is. And fortunately, the team that found it was not the team that lost it. So it was all good. But it's the customer success story that nobody will ever let you tell. Yeah. So there you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody wants that story told, but it happens way more often than anybody would think.
Yeah. MGI Research estimates that the average SaaS company with disconnected quoting and billing is bleeding about 3%. And if you have consumption, like some form of consumption, but as high as 5% of ARR every year. right? So that's like,
Wow.
that is a massive hit on your valuation. And so,
Yes.
and then you flip around and you go, well, it's also just harder. Like running those two systems is actually just harder. Like the reason why they're dropping it is it's hard to make them work together. So you actually,
True.
it's not like saying, oh, we can solve this problem, but it's going to be worse. It's like, no, you can solve this problem, it's going to be better. Like it's simpler, easier, faster, all that sort of stuff. So that's what's driving our business. That and the fact that the entire world has no idea what's about to happen next.
This is true. Yeah, quoting, billing, self-service. I mean, all that has to be unified in order for, I mean, really to be able to do anything with your pricing. I think pricing, we've had a couple pricing experts on the show and talked about that. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges is not having that dialed in order to be able to test different price plans,
Well,
different pricing methods, whether it's licenses or user usage based, or whatever it might be, special deals, enterprise. I mean, so many things depend on that working well.
yeah, I mean, the hard thing about pricing experiments is you own them. Like, like if you decide you want to, okay, let's try offering a cohort of customers that we're going to have no seat charges. We're just going to have a committed consumption across a range of outcomes, right? Well,
Right.
unless you're planning to churn all those customers, you have to deliver, you have to measure those outcomes and deliver invoicing based on those outcomes for better or for worse, or buy them out of their contracts or something, because you can't just go, oh, sorry, bygones, we decided not to do that. Like if you want to actually just
Right. Yeah.
completely sewer
We
your
don't want to do this
reputation,
anymore.
you can solve it by saying, actually, we want to give you like simpler pricing that's less expensive, in which case you just force churn. But then you think about it, well, yeah, but the system that you were implementing is way less expensive than the likely churn of doing it that way, of just solving the problem. So it becomes really easy. So we have customers now running. Well, we actually have almost all of enterprise compute, AI compute. So OpenAI, Anthropic, Glean, Jasper, Legora, Cursor. I'm missing a whole bunch of people, but like, and the reason they're all customers is because of the flexibility of the platform. And the reason that matters is even they don't know what the future of pricing for this looks like. And what's really fascinating for us is they're all running experiments and they're not the same experiments, which is super interesting. Yeah, super, super interesting. Now, I can't tell you what experiments anybody's running, but it is super interesting to watch those people and to learn from them. And that experimental issue, I would say, is the number one issue that drove the growth of our company.
Yeah. Well, without giving away too much, what are maybe some lessons that you've learned or things that you're seeing or trends in the marketplace regarding pricing and RevOps that you're seeing that may drive the future?
So I think the first thing that I think everybody has to understand is there's a reason why none of those companies are picking the old systems, right? And we're not the entire system. The other systems they're using to run their business are also innovative, forward-looking systems. Like Metronome is a huge footprint that's alongside with us. We have great partnership and friendship with that company. They do things. Some of the things overlap with what we do, but it's metering at a deep level, and it's a discipline. But the point is, they're using new technologies to do it, and the reason they're doing that is because the pace of change has changed. Like they know that the number one attribute they need in a partner, a technology partner, is speed, flexibility, time to value. Because and so what is amazing working with these companies is their pace of execution is crazy. So you know OpenAI famously went live on new with billions of dollars of revenue, multiple currencies, multiple everything, like different teams, all this stuff, 8 weeks. That says so much more about OpenAI than it does about new. But they would say that they couldn't do it on anything other than a system like new that was built for speed. But I think that's everybody's got to get their head around is that if it takes you a year to stand up a system, how long is it going to take you to change it? And somebody might optimistically go, a year. And you go, no, once you set that system up, changing it in a material way can often take longer than actually setting up the first time. Whereas if something took you 3 months to set up, how long is it going to take you to change it? Well, the answer is like less than 3 months, because the fact that you could set it up that fast meant it was very, very flexible. Whereas the reason the other thing took a year was it was very inflexible, right? And so you get this. So that's the biggest thing. So people are the fastest moving companies are over indexing on what they don't know, whereas everybody else is buying systems on what they think they know. And that
Mm,
is, I would say everybody, because obviously all of our customers are also thinking about things the way
sure.
that other people do. I think the other thing is people think that the answer is to go to simpler systems. That is not the answer. I can't tell you what business problems all of our customers are trying to solve, but they're not simple ones. Like, in other words, we have customers from
Yeah,
$20 million or $10 million of revenue into the billions and billions and billions of dollars, right? And they are using the same technology, but they have completely different data problems. Like
absolutely.
completely different complexity of customer bases, complexity of channels, complexity of everything. And what's really super interesting is we're starting to see customers, the young customers, being able to leverage new to actually move up that complexity cycle and be able to eat at the table with the big boys way faster, because the customer comes along and says, sure, I'll buy from you, but I'm going to buy this way. And they go, no problem. We can handle that. Yeah, sure. We'll spin
Mm,
up that model just for you and we can bill it. Like, that's the kind of flexibility. Make sense?
yes, it does.
Mhm.
Do you think some of the legacy systems are built that way, and maybe I don't want to say that they're intentionally hard, but they intentionally don't make them easy to implement, because the idea is once they get in there, then their customers are going to be stuck, and the pain of change was just going to be so hard, they're going to stay with them forever.
No, that's a perception. But I actually know a lot of the people who built those systems. I had the great pleasure and honor of meeting a lot of them. And that was never their intention at all. I think it is, I think there's a attention. Well, first of all, there's the whole saying, bad artists borrow, great artists steal. What we do in
Yeah,
tech is we iterate generations of tech, and each tech generation gets to learn all the mistakes that the last tech generation ran
exactly.
into. But we tend to run on these 15-year cycles, and we're in one right now. Leaving aside OpenAI and Anthropic. We were already in
Yeah.
one without them, right? And so, but I know the people who built SteelBrick were very passionate about enabling more people to have better systems that would work better. And I know the people, like, we compete with the team over at Salesforce RCA, who are building Revenue Cloud Advanced, or I think it's now called Agent Force Revenue something, but they could change the name. But look, the people over there are serious people. We disagree with their data model. We think we have a better product, at least for our ICP, but they also have a bigger problem. And I think you got to remember that anybody who plunges their life into doing this, it's not about the money. It's never about the money. Building a software company is always about money. It's about being passionate about solving a problem. And as a customer, if you think of it, every single vendor out there has an engineering team and a product team who are actually passionate about making their life better. What happens, though, if you lose control of your ICP, so we're totally focused on tech, like we're just 100% focused on tech. We do have adjacencies to tech, which are other recurring revenue businesses that kind of look and quack like tech, but we're right now completely focused on tech. Well, that allows us to basically move fast and pay a lot of attention to people. But it's not like all the other vendors, if all the other vendors are trying to make it hard to implement their software. It's just that if you start including certain types of people in your, or too many different types of people in your target, you end up with very, very complex software. And I think now sometimes people just make data model mistakes as well. And that's a different thing. That's just, we probably will I think we've got a brilliant data model, but we'll probably discover that there's some things we go, oh, yeah, yeah, right, that leads to this conclusion, and that walls us off from doing something. But so far we haven't run into anything like that.
I think that's normal as tech advances. I mean, the way that we
Yeah.
develop software today is different than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You can look at code that's 10 years old and think, oh, well, that was a terrible idea. Why did they do it that way? Well, because 10 years ago, that was a really smart way to do it.
Completely, right?
So, yeah,
Yeah, I think we've got to have a lot of humility that we stand on the shoulders of giants, right?
yeah,
And we all have inherited the incredible investment, and now we're inheriting the collective intelligence of everyone, which is just wild. Like the way people
yeah,
build
it
software
is.
now, if you're smart, is you're basically enabling the collective engineering knowledge of essentially almost everyone, at least when you're doing normal coding behavior, right?
Yeah, things are definitely different. And yeah, I love that analogy, standing on the shoulders of giants, because we certainly are. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
How have you built
so good.
just say, how have you built such a fast deployment engine with new, and maybe what does that speed unlock for your customers?
So um so the first thing that one of the things that drew me in when Tina was explaining about new is she said there's two problems getting this into the marketplace. The one was that the obvious one is that everybody worth having already has these systems, and actually there's not just one system, there's three systems, and they're actually owned by three different people or three different teams, and their job is to own them, right? So it's a bit of a problem, right? Bit of a go-to-market problem. And then the second part was that everybody would think that if you made a system that had all the functions of all of them, it would be so complicated, going back to the problem we were talking about before, that it would be impossible to own, right? And so she said, so the solution to the first one is to go after the CPQ business because it's the gateway to everything else. In other words, if you
So
deliver an
smart.
incredible CPQ, and I think New is arguably an incredible CPQ um, for our industry anyway. And you know, Craig Rosenberg, who's a great friend over at Scale, described it as the best CPQ ever for sellers, like without regard to whether it has a billing engine. And that was before we had all the agentic stuff that makes it incredibly useful for sellers now. But the idea was build that and productize the living crap out of that experience to make them really focused on the different users, the AE user, the account manager, CS user that deals with renewals, the order desk user, really focus on productizing their experiences in a way that takes the complexity away. But the second problem that she identified was that everybody who knew how to implement these things was stuck in a modality or being trained in a modality of complexity being their job. And so what she did is she productized how you administer new. So the reason we can implement it super quickly is people can learn how to implement new inside their own projects. And so a great story. One of our customers, Exonify, again, an outlier, says a lot more about Exonify than it does about us. Um, they effectively went live during training. So there's a training that we offer customers at the beginning of a project. They really wanted to do that. And their team sort of got to the end of the training and they went, I think we're done. And our team was like, great, yeah, we've done training. Like, no, I think we're done the project. At night, we were doing the project, right? And so, we were just delighted. I think again, this is an awful lot about their company. I don't think they actually went live because I think they were so far ahead of schedule that nobody else was ready to go. My point of it was, we did review it with them and things like that. But that is an example of empowering an incredible team to do something frankly incredible, which would not have been possible. There's no way you would go out and learn Salesforce CPQ at a level of expertise that would allow you to deploy it while deploying it. Like that's not going to happen, right? And so by productizing that way, by simplifying it, they just were able to do that because they didn't have to grok the entire data model to do it. They just go, oh, I had to go here and I do this and I do that. Well, they don't care that actually is manipulating all sorts of objects in the background that describe price in a complex way. In the same way, the AE doesn't care that he's configuring a billing system or she's configuring a billing system. Um, so that's why it goes so fast. OpenAI 8 weeks, that was extraordinary. Anthropic 12 weeks. Chili Piper ripped out their entire infrastructure, quoting, self-service, and billing, and replaced it in 13 weeks. Like, that's crazy bonkers. We're super pleased, but we're engineering to do that, and we're not done. Like, our objective is to drive it down. Our It's not that we want to drive the first change down to zero. We want to like the implementation down to zero, because people need to be handheld and understand what they're doing. We want to drive the incremental change to zero. That's the objective. So that basically somebody can come along and go, okay, what do we want to do? Great. You need to do a test on this for this customer, and you'd like to get the contract out today, and we need to know how to bill it. Yes, I can do that for you. And I will do that, and we can get it through approval. They can get through their approvals because their finance team is confident that they can do it. That's the objective. It just turns out that the byproduct of being obsessed about that is really short implementations. So it's like
Hmm.
it's not, we weren't trying to target the implementation time. We were trying to target
Right.
the future change time. Does that make sense? Yeah.
It does. It does. Yeah, those are one and the same. Yeah, you're really focusing on how quickly can they get that value, and not the incremental change, but fast change,
Yeah.
big change.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even idiosyncratic change. Like, I just need to do this one contract for this one enterprise customer, and I need to get
Right.
it approved, and that could make a big change for your company. Enter a new market, establish a dollar presence. Every customer you lose, get as Bill Gates says, every customer you lose is a victory for someone else. Right?
True.
And probably your competitor, right? And so
Yeah.
so it's really important that flexibility might just be one customer.
Yeah. I think a lot of companies talk about dominating a category, or maybe even creating a new category, and I think that the new is really done that in a big way, where the old term maybe RevOps, revenue operations, and now it's more revenue lifecycle management.
Mhm.
And it does have a life cycle. It's not just operations. It's not just getting the contract done, but there is a life cycle. There's a lifetime value, and life doesn't stop at the sale. I think it starts a deeper relationship for managing that life cycle. Define what that means and how is it different from traditional RevOps.
The concept of a revenue lifecycle management has existed for quite a while. And the concept of a single system and the value that would bring to doing that's also existed for a while. Sorry, my earbud flying out. So a good example of somebody who had that vision, not directly in a space, is frankly NetSuite. In a different market, mostly in the initially in the wholesale wholesale goods and light manufacturing space when they first entered the market. But this one system, no limits idea was really talking about the same thing, that by having all the information related to a customer's relationship in one system, it would provide you with a different level of agility. And, ACTPack and most of Sage doesn't exist anymore because they were right. Right. So, and then they expand their market, and they are still, a dominant provider of financial systems, cloud-based financial systems. But now there's lots of other people coming and attacking that problem, like a bunch of orcas, right? Um, but the revenue lifecycle concept have also existed outside of tech, and there's lots and lots of other parts of the economy, insurance and healthcare, a lot of other places where people have been talking about revenue life cycles for a very long time because of these huge contracts that take ages and ages and ages to fulfill, right? About 4 years ago, though, people started talking about it in our world as being a union between CPQ and billing in a way that hadn't been talked about before, right? And so you had subscribe and monetize now, to a lesser extent, cash flow, because they were kind of like a different thing, but and us entering the market. And the major difference between the three of us was, first of all, the depth of the teams coming in there, because New was founded by people who had I don't know, 100 times more experience as a group than most startups have. It was like the who's who of Zora and Salesforce CPQ, right? And NetSuite, actually, a bunch of people from NetSuite. But the
That's
second
awesome.
thing was, we looked ahead and said, which market do we want to go after? And we understood that the real market was helping companies get from being small to large companies. But if you wanted to actually make a lot of money in the near term, you had to build software that was really, really good for 100 million, 200 million, 300 million, 400 million, $500 million software companies. Because for two reasons. One was because there's tons of money doing that, and you can make a really successful software company selling that. But the second one was that we wanted our mission as a company was to help companies grow, right? So you have to be good at where they're going to be. And so Tom Sturgios is a friend at Creighton Consulting, the old, came out of the old HEG guys who made Steelbrick so successful. He said the unusual thing about New was we went right at the hardest problems first. We didn't go like, hey, let's do like this, and it does this little thing. And okay, if you've got a really simple
Right.
business case, we can do it. Like it's like, no, if you actually have to do multi-attribute pricing across Germany and in Europe, and you in the middle of that, you have to give somebody, a few months off, but your base currency is dollars, but you're doing it in euros. Like, I'm not saying that's a real thing. That's a combination of ideas. You
Right.
can do that in New, right? And so that was the big difference between us and what other people were thinking. Other people were thinking like, this is a thing for small companies, and we're like, no, this is a thing for big companies.
Love it.
And it just turns out that if you make a really beautiful system for big companies, small companies be able to use it and then go kick the living butts out of the big companies that don't, right? And that's the fun part. And it's so much fun to work with our small. Like, remember, our small customers are bigger than us, right? Like, so when I say small,
Right.
it seems silly because I'd love to be at the size of many of our smaller customers, but they're just small compared to our, multi-hundred million, multi-billion ARR customers.
Right. Right. Ever notice how every leadership book tells you to take the journey, but none really show you the map? Well, after scaling multiple companies to over 260 million in combined revenue and working with over 1,000 leaders, I discovered the key difference that separates leaders who burn out from those who build unstoppable momentum. It's not strategy, not charisma, it's not even luck. It's relationships, specifically four of them. My new book, The Captain's Keys, reveals the stability matrix, a proven system that transforms leadership from survival into sustainable success. Inside, you'll discover the four critical relationships every leader needs and exactly how to build them. You can get your copy at thecaptainskeys.com, Amazon, or your favorite bookstore, and it's available in print, ebook, and audio. You don't need another playbook. You just need the right people in your boat. I think it's really smart, and just reflecting back on something you said a minute ago, just kind of starting with CPQ and then expanding into billing. Absolutely brilliant, kind of a Trojan horse strategy or land and expand, big terminology. How does that playbook work? And then, maybe what can other founders learn from it when they're going up against entrenched players?
Well, I gave some people some advice a little while ago, and they said, one of the most biggest things you've learned new. And I said, it's having built my last company, which really was a new category defining company. It is way easier to go and take market share from an existing market than it is to build a market. Um, like unless you're Cursor, right? Cursor and Lovable and Bolt and
Right, right.
Writer. I mean, they're just self-defining. But even then, they're taking business away from the IDE market, the development
Correct.
environment
That's
market. They
exactly
really
what they're
are still
doing.
taking away from the existing market. I think the model originators, OpenAI and Anthropic and Mistral and Cohere, they're really creating a new market. Like they're really going into a new space. So that's the first thing. Is like don't be afraid to compete with people who already have a business. There's a life cycle to everything. Just make sure you time it right, and you understand why there's an opportunity to go in there. Um, the second thing about the whole Trojan horse strategy is focus on delivering value somewhere in the value chain you're trying to unwrap, but don't think of it like you can't think of it like a step in the sense that you're not fully committed to being the best in the world at that step. Because if you're going to use it as So like our Trojan horse, like CPQ is definitely a Trojan horse. Like if you buy our everything billing platform, we'll give you the CPQ for free. It's not a different system. They're the same thing. Like they're literally, if you buy our everything billing, you get like as many CPQ seats as you want, as much analytics as you want, as much API calls as you want, as much self-service as you want, as much billing as you want. You don't have to buy our software that way, but that's what that becomes a percentage of revenue deal that CFOs like to make, right? Um, but the Trojan horse idea only works because this is a Trojan horse that the Trojans would come out of the fortress and negotiate to buy, right? Like it's not even if you didn't give it to them. They came down, they went, geez, that's a really nice horse. How much for the horse? Yeah, I don't know, about $500,000, right? And they buy the horse, they take it inside. And when they take it inside, they discover instead of bunch of bad people jumping out and killing them all. And they discover that there's all sorts of benefits to the horse that they never even understood. Right. So it's the best Trojan horse ever. And so the reason it worked though was that our CPQ is freaking awesome. Like really, really, really well designed. It is not really well designed for people who sell helicopter parts or configurable dishwashers or really, really complex professional services engagements. It's not good for that. There are other people who are really good at that. Um, and so that's it. So the two things are if you're going to attack a market, make sure you understand why it's vulnerable. And if you're going to use a wedge, make sure that wedge is made out of gold. And if it's not made out of gold, then nobody's going to care.
Love that. Well, what's been the biggest challenge in building new from zero revenue to enterprise adoption in a very short time?
I think there's so many challenges. It's like everybody tells you it's so easy. It's like not. It's like basically if you don't
Right, right.
like we have a saying at New, like this is so hard not to love it, right? Like if you
I
if
like that.
if you
It's a
if
great
you
attitude.
if you don't actually love working here, you should go because there's a lot easier ways to make money than to work at a company that's trying to build something this complex at this time of disruption. Um, with the type of customers of demanding customers, which are joy to work with, but like yeah, it's like it's hard, right? So the hardest thing, I think I think we have a unique generational talent as our engineering leader, and she's just she's that team is unbelievable esprit de corps, and that is the beating heart of New. It's not that everybody else isn't 189% committed, but their her leadership and their willingness to go beyond what is reasonable in their dedication to our customers is at the heart of this. That's the hardest thing to do. It's like basically have a culture, an engineering culture that's like, I don't know, a bunch of Vikings coming over the end of a boat and and attacking Britain. Like they're just like they're amazing, right? And occasionally we hire people who aren't like that, and they have to go. Like they're just not going to fit in, and they just can't burn. There's limits to that, and we are constantly reinvesting and expanding that team. But that like if you somebody who's going to try to attack that market, trying to build a team that had that esprit core would be really really hard. Now once you have that core, um, then building a really, really powerful execution machine around it is way easier. One of our AEs was interviewing somebody for a job, and she rejected them. And generally, if you don't get in it through an interview with one of our stand-on interviews, you don't get anywhere, right? And um, and um, and she said I forget who she said it to. She said, I'm just not sure that he's prepared to give 200%, right? And she doesn't mean work like 200 times, like double time, although lots of people kind of do. But she meant like he wasn't all in. He wasn't like prepared to make this the most important thing. Like obviously your family is the most important thing. That's the most important thing. But then after that, if it's like racquetball, like no, like this is not the company for you at this time, right? If the next thing has to be New, it is for me, it is for Tina, it is for everybody here. So building that esprit de corps, when we're distributed, because we're a very distributed company, that's really hard. what we thought was going to be hard that wasn't as hard was convincing everybody that the systems they had were not good. That turned out to be not that big of a problem at all. And then once everybody started to see all the AI companies drop, and then a whole bunch of other, 200, $300 billion companies drop onto new, then all of a sudden everybody goes, oh, okay, I'm not afraid of buying it either. Right. So those
Right.
two things, they weren't hard. They just had to be very methodically executed on. And we were very lucky to have some great friends who took a leadership role, an advocacy role for us inside those companies to help us be successful. They believed in us, and we're very grateful for that. But we thought that was going to be harder than it was, and it wasn't.
What is the secret to building a culture like that, where you have people that are all in and they're fully committed to the vision and their teammates?
Being all in, like,
Yeah.
I once got asked, somebody was asking me what I thought was an incredibly stupid question, but anyway, and they said, um, what is the main barrier to having a diverse culture in your company? And I said, management. Like, right? Like, that's it. Like, so what's the main barrier to
Pretty
having
much.
a fully committed, high energy, committed team? Management. That's right. Because like,
Yeah.
if like people can smell bullshit, like if you put your values on a wall and they look around and they don't see you live those values every single day. So our values are customer compassion. Like, understand that everybody who buys the first versions of enterprise software is risking their job, right? Probably,
Right.
but lots of other versions too. but
Absolutely true.
and that this is tremendous trust that they and their management teams are placing in us, and we need to honor and own that trust every single day. The similar thing is coworker compassion, right? Understand that we are all running at an unbelievable pace, right? And therefore, don't pass something along half done, or don't do less than 180% of what you could have done to pass it on, because somebody else is going to bear the brunt of that. If you didn't
Right.
test it properly, the CS team is going to find out, and probably in a very decompressing way, right? And the last one, though, is
Yes.
be brilliantly new. Like, be if you're going to do something, try to think what the very best version of that is, and let's aim for that. And maybe we fall short sometimes, and we certainly do fall short sometimes. But the I think the reason you get a strong culture is that in terms of wanting to figure out what really mattered to us, but we can literally walk around and point to things we do, management decisions, how we deal with people, how we recruit people, and guess what? You end up with this incredibly diverse, very energized team, and the people who aren't energized, um, they have to go. And
Yep.
also don't like people aren't pulling their weight. You got to get rid of them, because everyone else is working so hard. They'll just parachute on other people. So that puts a lot
Yeah.
of responsibility on hiring, because I feel really bad every time I've had to fire somebody in my career. I feel really bad about it because I understand what it means to them. But our mission isn't to help them. Our mission is to help our customers and to help our team.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's those things. I hope that made some kind of sense. Yeah.
It does. It does. I mean, you get what you tolerate. And when you let somebody in, the entire team knows who the performers are and they know who the slackers are. And it's no surprise to them. But when you tolerate that behavior and you keep somebody like that on, it hurts morale across the board. It makes your top performers not want to it makes them not want to be all in, because obviously you don't have to be. No matter what the values are, they're up on the wall.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is,
Breaks trust.
that's right. If you want to be trusted, be trustworthy. If you want to be respected, be respectful. Like, if you want great partnerships, be a great partner.
Yeah.
It's not hard. It's like, just basically, treat people the way they would like to be treated is a great mantra in business. Because if you honestly, if you go, I want you to trust me, but I didn't actually tell you the truth about what we're up to, how far is that going to go, right?
Right.
So we have to have some honest conversations, and we do have honest conversations. But I think it's not just about us. Like, I think it's what I've learned in running companies is that the other version just doesn't work for me anyway. It doesn't work.
Yeah. Where can people learn more about you and about New online?
So obviously the simplest place to find out about New is at new.io. Um, and you can find out all about us and some of the customer stories, other things. For me, the best way to reach me is on LinkedIn. And people reach out to me all the time on LinkedIn. I would just say, if you are trying to reach someone in a company and you'd like to sell us something, I'm a sales guy. Like, that's how my career developed. From being a lawyer to really being in sales and leading revenue teams. I understand how hard it is what you do. Just tell me that. Like, to just come right out and go, hey, I've got this product. I think it'd be really useful. I'd like to find out who's on your team. I will help you if you can. If you need help in some other way, this is like two groups of people. People who are not in the market for this, but are just curious about new. Same thing applies to our entire culture. If you come in through the demo and you respond and say, hey, we don't have a project on right now, I'm just really curious about you guys, you'll get treated very well. We totally understand what's going on. If you want my advice about something, I just gave some advice, like, you're not ready for us, you don't need us here, I suggest you start over here. Then by all means reach out to me. But LinkedIn is the most common way people reach me, because I actually see all my LinkedIn messages, whereas my EA sees all of my email messages. so
Sure.
it's a bit different. Yeah.
In the same way.
Mm.
Awesome. We'll make sure and link that in the show notes. And Mark, it's been an absolutely fantastic conversation. Very valuable today. I appreciate it. So thanks for being on SaaS Fuel.
Oh, Jeff, I really appreciate it, and I enjoyed it completely. And if there's anything that broke somebody's attention, they want to reach out to me, I encourage them to do that.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Mark, for coming on the show and sharing your journey and insights. You can learn more about Mark and New at new.io. And New is spelled N-U-E because it's the new way to spell new, N-U-E, new.io. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to check out our channel on YouTube as well. It's at Champion Leadership. Over there, we've got full video episodes for you, trainings, outtakes, shorts, lots of things over there for you. And thought leaders share. Share this episode with someone who's pivoted so many times their product has emotional whiplash. Everyone who shares this week gets a startup chiropractor, trademark. It realigns your vision, cracks your roadmap, and tells you to stop sleeping on feature requests. What happens when product strategy challenges the very idea of goals and targets? Next up, Radhika Dutt, author of Radical Product Thinking, joins us to unpack why traditional metrics often backfire and what actually drives meaningful innovation. With experience spanning 5 acquisitions, advising the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and building products across industries from robotics to wine, Radhika delivers a global contrarian perspective to product leadership. You definitely don't want to miss that one. She is a fireball. I love this interview. And then after that, 1 week from today, how do you scale a creator economy platform from the inside? Well, engineering first. Ryan Debenham, CEO of Grin, shares his journey from software engineer to leading AI and data at Qualtrics through its $8 billion SAP acquisition, then helping Route scale to $100 million in revenue. And now he is running the world's leading creator management platform. This is a rare operator's view on product, growth, and leadership at crazy scale. I will see you next time, and as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/SaaSfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.